Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. And let's throw in a buon anno. Welcome to our instant reaction pod. Consider this your stoppage time as we review Udinese Lazio, first match of 2024. I am your host, Sean McIntosh, joined by my co host, Caleb Adams. Caleb, how are you doing? Welcome to 2024. It's good to see you again.
It's good to be back on here, especially celebrating another win. Three in a row, not just a win, 3 wins in a row. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, and let's get into it. This one, as you said, marks our third victory in Serie A. Sees us slowly but surely making progress in the table. So let's jump in. This match started, interestingly enough, just to touch on the starting 11. Very thrilled to see Luca Pellegrini. There were some rumors in some projected starting 11s through the course of the week that had your typical Marusic or Hisai in that spot. So was thrilled to see Pellegrini in the starting 11. Romagnoli back dressed, did not start this fixture, which I think shows the faith in Gila. In the past, you would have seen us rush to get Romagnoli back in the starting 11. We did see Isaacson taking over Felipe Anderson's spot in the 11. So a bit of a dawn of a new day when you think about what we're accustomed to seeing in that starting lineup. But right off the bat, 8 minutes into this thing, Isaacson, Guendouzi, really nice combination. But in the end, we failed to finish and run a play. It is in the 12th minute that very Luca Pellegrini, who we have been clamoring to see more and more of, delivers a beauty from just outside at the edge of the box. Have to add, it was the work of Isaacson that earned that free kick, but Pellegrini steps up, fantastic crack with his left foot for his first goal in Lazio colors. Note to add, this was actually the first goal from a Lazio defender scoring from a direct free kick since Massimo Odo in 2006. So free kicks and set plays have always been a challenge for us. But step aside Luis Alberto, because Pellegrini is here to stay. So Lazio pretty much close out the first half with not a ton of threat from Udinese. We do see some first half substitutions at the break. Vecino coming in for Kamada, which we'll spend a ton of time speaking about. Felipe comes in for Isaacson, and it is a free kick giveth, a free kick taketh away, because in the 59th minute, Udinese from the set piece makes us pay. A bit of a deflection or flick on from a set piece that sees Wallace scoring for Udinese, levels it, and Lazio has to buckle down until the 76th minute. Fantastic team goal, something that we've been wanting to see. Just fantastic combination all the way around. It starts with Patrick playing a long ball, and Tati heads it down nicely. Felipe then gets a touch on it to play Vecino, and Vecino does absolutely well to finish it as cool as can be to give us the deciding goal. And it finishes at 2-1 Lazio, 3 points. As we've said, third consecutive victory that vaults us currently at 6th in the table. There are some very important matches yet to play. We are recording this immediately after the match. So Atalanta and Roma do have to play one another. They somebody's going to take points off of each other, if not both, which would be big for us. But here we are, Caleb. Big win. Give us your 3 words or less to describe this one.
I'm going to say ugly but resilient. I think that's sort of been. You can maybe use those 3 words for the past 3 games. We haven't really played really well. We've been a bit disjointed. We haven't been really at our best. But where we have to improve compared to the early parts of the season is mentality. If we go down in a game like this, right? If we equalize like we did this game in the past, in the beginning of the season, we just lose the game. We saw that early in the season where we would either concede early or concede an equalizer, and that momentum would just shift, and we would just get pushed out of the game. And mentally, we just could not keep up, right? Nowadays, we're seeing a much more resilient Lazio side, and it's making up a bit for the lackluster play on the field. And then you got to go through these spells. Sometimes you can't play pretty all the time, and it's the teams that are most resilient that usually the ones that end up doing well and making Champions League spots are the ones who can scrape out ugly wins. Those are the teams that end up getting in these spots. Not always the prettiest teams. Juventus, a great example. They don't play great ball, but man, they get it done and they're mentally really resilient. So that's good to see.
We're very aligned there, and I'm glad you mentioned Juventus because I was going to compare this performance to what we often see from them. My 3 words along the same lines, maybe a little bit more of a positive spin. So I said this was mature, methodical, and maddening all at the same time. Right?
That's good.
We talk about Juve, and Juve can play extremely ugly. They can come out of matches being the team that maybe on paper shouldn't have won, but the maturity at the end of the day sees them through so often with the full 3 points. And this one, like we could have put our heads down like we've done in the past, but the maturity to keep doing what they were doing. And at the end of the day, we didn't concede in run of play, which just shows, we're figuring something out on that side. I think, we played very methodical, very slow. And while it was maddening, at the end of the day, it did deliver. And it was a match. We've gone into this stretch of 4 games that we said each one of them were must wins, no questions about it. If we wanted to get back into a race for Champions League, we had to secure all 4 of these. And we are 3 for 3 with the 4th match being next Sunday against Lecce. So we're close to completing a very important part of the schedule. But I thought this approach to it was strong, and the bounce back after conceding was good enough. And a lot of the maddening comes from some of the frustrations in attack, but 2 goals, and that's nothing to scoff at. So tell me, Caleb, where do you think this match was won?
I think the substitutes, man. I think that we saw all of them were involved for the most part in the second goal to win it. Felipe, Vecino, all involved in those goals for the substitutes, and I did like bringing Lazzari as well, just in case with that yellow card of Pellegrini. I liked Romagnoli coming in late to just lock it down. I thought the substitutes were really on point, and they ended up being the difference, I think. Shout out to Sadi for that.
I mean, we've talked about, right? That seems to be a theme for this season. And, we've obviously criticized some things from Sadi, but the one consistent praise for him is the substitutions by and large. I mean, he's been getting those right. And you're correct, because all the substitutions played their part. I didn't have any qualms with any of them. I thought loved the reaction. First half, we were playing down a man. And this will segue into our bidone. I mean, no questions. We were playing down a man in the first half. It was 10v11. Kamada couldn't get anything right. And, I thought Sadi did extremely well to just notice that it wasn't something that was going to improve. And, we'll touch on, I have a lot to say just from the mentality, but real quick, bring in somebody that from an experience standpoint, from just having the right mentality and coming up big in so many moments this season, And
Yeah.
what does he do? Vecino steps up and is the decider on that play that sees us go ahead. So love the substitutions. Even Isaacson coming off, right? Like
Mhm.
you can look at that surface level and be frustrated because he's such a lively player. He injects so much for us. And I looked at it and I figured a couple things. One, Udinese was extremely physical, and
Mhm.
Isaacson was on the wrong end of that, right? Kind of getting pushed around a little bit, and
Yep.
we little scare, injury scare, where we earned the free
Mm.
kick, and he's getting trampled on and kicked, and so to put in Felipe, one, to preserve Isaacson and make sure he doesn't come
Yeah.
out injured, and just with this match being so physical, and Felipe paid him well, right? There was a payoff there with the assist
Yeah.
on that game-winning goal. So yeah, I would agree. I thought the substitutions were the biggest factor, and just having guys on the pitch that we're going to push, that we're going to settle things down. And I
Yeah.
love seeing Romagnoli, late in the match when things start to get a little hectic. That's who you want to see in there, and just to get some legs under him, kind of thinking
Yeah.
towards the future a bit, and what a way to get your legs under, right? Holding on for dear life to a victory. But yeah, I thought he was fantastic. So before we dive into some of the negativity in our bidone, who was your man of the match? Because there was a couple of shouts that I'm excited to talk about. But who did you peg?
I think again, and I think a big part of the stretch comes down to this player's performances. This player has, I think, taken a step up since we acquired him this offseason. He was good early parts of the season. Now he's really showing his ability to be elite, and that's Rovella, who was again everywhere. He was absolutely everywhere. He was an absolute nuisance for Udinese to deal with. He was affecting the game on both sides of the ball. His positioning was good. He made some big tackles. Everything flows through him, and when Morella is like on point, it really does seem like, yeah, we may have been a man down in midfield, but Morella almost felt like he made up for two people. It almost seems like we have two players in him, and when he's at his best, right? And so he was my man of the match for this game. How about you?
Yeah, so I'll touch on the others because I had Rovella too, and when I think of the totality of the match, like it's Rovella. We don't get there,
Yeah.
without just it was a complete match for him. And what I love about Rovella is the mentality, is that even when he makes a mistake, which he had a couple moments where he
Mm-hmm.
certainly, it wasn't a perfect game from him. Like
Yeah.
71st minute, he makes a very uncharacteristic lazy pass from him. He's got a ton of time and space, and he kind of just he tries to make a pass to his right back, and it's nobody's there, and it turned over. And but immediate reaction from him. It's always recognizing the mistake right away, and then
Mm-hmm.
you see the effort to win the ball back. And he is everywhere. He is both an extra defender and an outlet for your attack. And so yeah, the totality of the performance has to go to Rovella for man of the match. But we've got to give Pellegrini his due. Obviously, incredible free kick. What a way to score your first goal with the club. Strong. We've said this time and time again, and it started with short moments, right? He would just get
Mm-hmm.
a few minutes here and there, but every single time in those few moments, he would always deliver something positive, even if it wasn't something that you would see on a score sheet, right? Even if it
Right.
wasn't
Yeah.
an assist or a goal, you would see, right, he would be tossed into, especially last season, he would be tossed in late into matches. We'd be down a goal, but they'd be beautiful crosses into the box, and nobody would be there on the other end to finish it, but we would see
Yeah.
it and say, God, like, we don't have anybody that can whip a ball into the box like that. Like, he's doing things that are super positive. So
Yeah.
for today, it to land on a score sheet in that way, directly impactful, right? We've all been frustrated with the phrase balance as being the phrase that's kind of keeping him out of the lineup, because you've got Lazio on the other side, and I just thought he did so well. I thought he pairs well too with Gila. Those two have just such a great communication. They switch off one another. The pace of Gila can cover Pellegrini when he decides to push up a little bit. So I thought he was good all around. Obviously, coming away with a goal, he deserves a shout. And then, Vecino, obviously, big impact there. Again, a player that sometimes you don't see the fruits on a stat sheet. Today is a game in which the stat sheet helps big time, but he just is a calming presence. He's somebody that's been there. He gives you a little bit of muscle in a match like this that gets physical. I thought he was fantastic. So those were my three players that I would spotlight. But it's Rovella for sure.
I'll add as well, even though he was subbed off a bit early, I did think Zaccagni had a really good game too. It did seem like even though we kind of struggled to connect on offense for several different reasons, it did seem that whenever the ball got to him, he could be his man. It did seem that he could be his man. It did seem that he could get a good touch and continue play. And I think we're starting to see sort of his return to what we were used to seeing last season.
Interesting. So this is a perfect segue to Bidone, and he's not my Bidone, but I did actually have him marked down as a potential candidate, and
really,
it was
wow.
And the reason I do feel bad about mentioning him, because what I like is that he is somebody, regardless of if he is beating his man, regardless of whether the dribbles are coming off as successful, he keeps going. He puts his head down. He continues to try. Like, that's what you want to see, in compared to Felipe, who can be super frustrating in that, if he doesn't beat his man for the first two times, like, he shies away from it. So, that's where I don't want to be super critical of Zaccagni, but I did think, it was one of his poor matches. I didn't think he was necessarily beating his guys. There were a couple times where he got the ball and it was just it was a quick turnover. And to be fair to Zaccagni, it did seem like everybody had a tough touch today, and passes were kind of straying off. I did feel like, by and large, the whole team, on that side of the ball wasn't great. So I did appreciate Zaccagni. He's somebody that hustles back too, and very similar to Rovella. If he makes a mistake, you kind of see that effort to win that ball back. So, I did think it was maybe a little bit, I felt bad throwing him in the mix, but it's a clear one for me today. So look, Bidone for this one is Kamada. And there are no, I love to hear a debate about it, but for me, it was clear cut. It was super unfortunate. And here's what was really upsetting. And to the point where, we've talked about panic meters about the club. If I'm doing an individual meter of where we're kind of standing with this player, I mean, it is, if we're going 1 to 10 and 10 is like, I got no hope for this guy and there's zero future with the club, I'm starting to get there. Yeah, I really am. And this is why, because I can deal with poor performances. Yeah. Tough one. I can deal with poor performances. And here's a tale of two players coming in, both in our transfer window, both having seen a tough start to their careers at Lazio. You've got Tati Castellanos and Kamada, right? Both not super ideal starts. And Tati, Tati, you've seen all the other areas, right? Your intangibles, the effort. Guy fights like a madman, 110% effort. Is trying to do so many things when it's not going his way. Like, he's controlling the thing he can't control, and that is his fight. Sometimes he's fighting a little too much and he wants it, but the fight is there. There's a desire, and he kept at it, and he saw his breakout performance. And even in a match like today, where there's not a ton of service for Tati, he's not super involved in a lot, and we're just not attacking in a way that benefits a striker. He is involved in a big way in the goal, right? He some of his flick-ons were just great. You know, like he's winning balls. And now on the flip side, you have Kamada, who, you know, we've talked about it, that he has every right to be frustrated in some of these instances where he's making the right move, he's not getting the ball. You know, there's you know, sure, you can be frustrated, but the body language and some of that frustration, how do you respond? And you know, he's got his big opportunity with Luis Alberto out, and today it wasn't on his teammates. There were times when the ball is coming to you, man. Now's your time, right? And it's the ball is coming off of him just as if he has never played the game. Forget being a great player. We know he has done some good things in Europe, but he is playing at a level that is just primavera level. You know, the confidence has killed him, and it's just the mentality. He loses the ball. He's not making runs. He puts his head down, and to me, it looks like this is a player that has lost all heart and soul. And that is when I am like, all right, dude, you know, if you can't, you gotta control some of those areas that you can't control and give us some fight. I'm not seeing any fight. Who is your bidon, and what are you seeing from Kamada? Is there any hope? Is it as bad as maybe I'm seeing from this, particularly from this match?
No, that's I think you and I sort of are aligned on the view of Kamada at this point. As a clearly Kamada fan, for those who are just listening, I have a jersey with Kamada on it. Still don't regret it. Won't ever regret it. However, my biggest issue, like you said, is that it seems like he's given up. It seems like it's one thing to have a bad game, but like you said, Tatis has some bad games, but like Tati's a guy who's like, all right, next play, whatever. What can I do next to help my team? You know, we saw Tati, if he takes a bad touch, instead of like throwing up his arms in the air or like getting frustrated, Tati is running right back to try and chase the ball from the guy that took it from him. You know what I'm saying? That's one of the difference in mentalities here, where when Kamada makes a mistake or he just stands there and gets salty and upset at himself or a teammate. And it's really unusual because the Japanese players have sort of a reputation of being like relentless in mentality, relentless in the way they play, of like, hey, at the very end, you can at least rely on their work ethic, right? They have a really good sort of reputation throughout Europe and, you know, places they play with that sort of mentality. And we did see Kamada have, like, in the initial start, had bad games, but like he was still like in the game. Like he was still sort of fighting. He was running after balls. At this stage, it just seems like he's given up. And at that point, you know, and I wonder how much of it is also like, hey, I know I'm not going to be here at the end of the year anyways, because the new tax changes in Italy. It's good. He's on high wages. Are we going to pay those wages with full hit on taxes? I don't think so. And it's 1 year contract with a 3-year option. And so,
look, that's for me. That is, and
that should be a motivator,
right? But that is not a player that I want. Then, right? We're comparing Kamada's situation to other players. Like, here's another one, Vecino. Talk about a player that, you know, was on the outside with Sarri. You know, got into it. Looked like he was going to get transferred out to Galatasaray. You know, this offseason, you know, tons of rumors around him during this transfer window because he hasn't been getting the playing time that he wanted. You know, Sarri sat him, hasn't had the time that he figured he would have, and he comes into a match and he does his job. You are still a professional footballer, and if you're looking to your next move and you're whining, you're pounding about it, and you feel like you don't have a future here at this club, like if I'm anybody else and I'm looking at this player, I have to be concerned. And you would think, right, this is a player that was a big part of successful Frankfurt in Europe, but not only that, he was a big part of the Japanese national team and hasn't been called up, you know, for one of the biggest tournaments for them. And you wonder if Japan is seeing some of that. Is this, you know, something that they're not even seeing a player at this point that can contribute, because we've seen players get called up for national teams that aren't in favor with their current clubs, you know, because they know that they can offer something. So clearly, there's some concerns, and it's not just from Lazio fans; it's from his national team. And at this point, right, his direct replacement in this match, Vecino, produced. Does he get any more opportunities, Caleb, with us?
Oh man, this is tough. Honestly, there's two ways to look at it. If you're Lotito, you're thinking, "Oh man, we've invested in this guy." Well, okay?
It's a free at least.
There's a free transfer, so that does make it a little easier. But you're still,
but it is an asset nonetheless.
Yeah, it's an asset. It's an international. It's a guy who's had a history of playing. Hey, do we keep playing Kamada or give him chances so that we can see that old spark? And since we're not going to keep him at the end of the season, we can actually offload him for a decent sort of transfer fee. Or, hey, this attitude is unacceptable. You're sitting on the bench until you fix your attitude, which are both viable. And I really don't know. I'm a Kamada fan in terms of what he's previously done, but seeing that attitude, it's difficult to reward a player that way with continued starts, especially we have a player like Vecino who has shown that he fights for the badge, who has shown that he can impact games. So for me, I'm looking at the derby, right, coming up this Wednesday. You have to start Vecino. It has to be Vecino, Guendouzi, Varela. There's no way Kamada starts that game, right? And, do you maybe reserve him for some lesser? I don't know, but you can't reward that behavior at least in the near future here. You at least got to sit him for the next game, for the derby, maybe the one after that, and see if he changes his mentality a bit after that.
Yeah, I think that is spot on. There's no way. Forget the rewarding of this is the derby in a cup match, and so this is a huge fixture for Lazio, bragging rights, all of it, right? And that's a physical match. That is a tactical battle. And right now, Kamada isn't giving you any physicality. He's not providing anything. Certainly not in attack. Anything that he, you would assume he'd be a net positive in. He is not. And so there's just no way in a match that should be a battle and a physical one. I'm putting a guy like Vecino in there. So yeah, I think your midfield is absolutely the one we got to go with. And I'd consider Cataldi in that one too. Obviously, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, he had gotten the start in the Rome Derby in the Serie A match, but just with all of these matches coming in hot and heavy now, I mean, next Sunday it is Lecce, one that we've slipped up in, and so we've got to close this run of games because then we're kind of looking ahead. You've got Napoli, and while Napoli is absolutely struggling, it's still Napoli. They still got players, and so that is one you don't want to mess around with. And then it's Atalanta, the team that we are in a direct race with. So, there are going to be a lot of fixtures that you don't want to. You see how Rovella plays, same as Guendouzi, right? They're maximum effort for 90 minutes. So at some point, we got to throw Cataldi in there. So I wonder if, this Wednesday would be the opportunity to throw Cataldi in there.
That's definitely an option. I could see him starting against Lecce though. I could see Sally thinking Rovella, Guendouzi for sure, always like up for these games, playing at a high level. Throw Vecino in. Let's continue this high, get a big result against Roma, and then throw in Cataldi against Lecce. I would prefer that personally, but he could go either way.
Yeah. So then let's briefly talk about this derby. Talked about the midfield. What do you think we should do? Let's go with that back line here. What do you think we should do in the back line?
I think back line, you go Pellegrini, you go Romagnoli, you go Patrick, and you go personally, the whole balance for me, throw Lazio out there for me. Like Roma are not yes, they're the sort of team that wants to sit back, counter and stuff like that. But I think both Pellegrini and Lazio have the pace to recover, and I think that we're going to be more likely trying to break them down. They play like a rigid system, and do they play a 3-back? Don't they play a 3-back nowadays?
I don't know. Here would be my concern, and if if Lukaku is healthy and playing in this one, that
Uh-huh.
is where I would be. Obviously you got Romagnoli back, which is perfect for a matchup like this. He's got the size, but that is where I would consider Marusic, somebody else in there. Roma, yeah, it's not playing free flowing style of football, but when it comes to set pieces and corners, like they're going to have some size, and so that's where somebody like Marusic can be helpful if we're concerned with balance and not necessarily finding ourselves, on the other end of a counter, or just I am concerned about set pieces when we are super small.
My thinking is very true. That is very true. My thinking is Vecino sort of makes up a bit for the height and the physicality. Vecino is more defensive. Vecino is good aerially, and I think that I rather have if Vecino starting that game, I feel a little better with Lazio compared to Kamara was starting. Kamara was starting, I'd be like, yeah, throw Marusic in. So I do think it adds a little more balance there. Another reason why is I just confirmed Roma do play a 3-back, and their wing backs are going to be the main sort of threat up top, right? In terms of on the side. For me, if we can have players like Pellegrini and Lazzari running in behind those wing backs, it's going to cause problems for Roma. And so either approach, I think is a good approach. I think I could see either way. It will be Marusic. For sure, Marusic should be on the field. We've seen Sadi favor him heavily, even after bad matches and really bad stretches. He keeps playing, so it's likely he's going to keep staying on the field. What are you doing in the attack?
So in the attack, obviously limited with Cheeto being hurt. Obviously that means Tati's your man, and he's been playing well. So no concerns on that front. I do think what I want and what will happen, and there's not a big disconnect with either. I'm not going to be overly upset. What I think will happen is Zaccagni, perfect. Right. We've also seen Pedro not necessarily be, at his best. He's aging. I think we've kind of seen, the end of Pedro in top European play, but he'll have his moments. So Zaccagni a lock for that, Tati in the middle, and I think you'll see Felipe Anderson, back at that starting spot for this match, partly because we saw a quick substitution, and I don't think it was because Isaacson played particularly poor, but Felipe looked good. Like, he looked fine. I think he played well. There was an opportunity in today's match, that could both be a little frustrating, but at the same time, I appreciated the directness. Felipe Anderson had the ball, was making a darting run, like beat a defender, and he's got some space, and he decides to have a crack at it. This was the 79th minute. So Felipe on a break, and he goes for it, top corner, and it goes wide. There was a pass he could have made to Tati, or he could have kind of cut in and maybe positioned himself. But, we so often criticize him for not being direct, that I was fine with him having a go. So I do think by and large, like, he played fine today. Seeing that, I think Sadi might reward him again, a little bit of a rotation, and in a match where I do think it'll just be like two guys playing chess and trying to outthink each other and kind of going for the safer play is what I think would happen. But of course, I would love to see Isaacson and just kind of go all out for it, because I do think we are the better side.
Yeah, I think part of my thinking as well with Lazzari and Pellegrini is you have Vecino, and I also prefer Felipe to start. I actually think I think he will, but I like Felipe because Felipe was bench at halftime the prior game, and because it was bad, he came back this game, provided a game-winning assist. I think you're like, hey man, and we don't know the injury status of Isaacson either. We may want to be a little more cautious with him. Seeing as he was already injured, maybe re-aggravated something, we don't know. So I like the idea of Felipe starting. And again, that also, Felipe practically plays as another fullback with his defensive work rate. He gets all the way back, providing more support for someone like Lazzari as well. And they seem to combine pretty well too. Lazzari seems to combine well with any right winger on that side. But yeah, I like the front three of Zaccagni, Tati, and Felipe. I think that's what we'll see. And Bring it on. I'm super excited for this game.
Yeah, it'll, important one, big time bragging rights. It doesn't happen often. So this will be fun. We're hoping to record live for that one. I know it's a work week and always a little bit tougher, but we'll do the very best we can to hop on as soon as possible. Three wins, climbing up the table. Right now, it's a positive start to 2024, but big fixtures, bragging rights, a lot going on. That spells, an exciting start to this season, and hopefully we're in the mix for top four late into this one. But we're excited. This will be fun. Please, again, if you're watching, head on over to YouTube to our channel and subscribe to our page. Big 2024 for us. We are trying to grow that as much as possible. We're on every social media platform. We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're going to be delivering more and more content this year. Excited to do that. And if you're not watching or don't want to look at our faces, we are on audio podcasts as well. Your Apples, your Spotifys. Make sure to give us those 5-star ratings. But more than anything, during the good times, the bad times, the big wins, the 3 wins in a row, the climbing of the tables, only one thing matters, and that is our beloved Lazio. So, sempre forza Lazio.